everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's time to talk about AEW Dynamite New Year's Smash Part 1. And you know what, this was really, I'm happy to be here, guys. This was a great show. Happy to talk about it with you all. Yeah, this was a very, not only an entertaining edition of Dynamite, but a very eventful one as well. What a way to kick off 2021. So, without any further ado, it's time to talk about how good the show was, which I've already kind of alluded to. But of course, there's only one way of really determining that, and that is by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite New Year's Smash Part 1 Graded. First up, we get a big 8-man tag team match with the Young Bucks teaming up with Daniels and Kazarian SCU to take on TH2, Jack Evans and Angelico, and the Acclaimed. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. We rap all day. We're gonna rap this way and that way. Bad. Worse than the last time I did it. And the Acclaimed actually addressed some of the criticism that they're just ripping off the Doctor of Thugonomics thing, because one of Max Caster's bars during their introduction was, "We're John Cena? Oh, that's petty. If we're John Cena, then you're Janetti," which is the Bucks, because they're like the Rockers. I think that's what he meant. So that was decent, actually. There are bodies obviously flying all over the place in this match. It's fast-paced, it's entertaining to start off the show. There's a very unique counter at one point where Daniels goes for like a split-legged moonsault to the outside of the ring, but Bowens is in there and just grabs his legs to stop him from flopping to the outside, which I thought was quite a unique reversal, really. And the Bucks are loving a little bit of misdirection in this one as well. Similar, it reminded me a little bit of their epic tag team match against Ibushi and Omega a few years ago, where they'd be like going up top and then just diving to the outside through a table or something. Matt Jackson does that at one point, fakes moonsaulting into the ring and just leaping to the outside. Not through a table this time, but it's still really surprising and cool. Surprising and cool in one go. Bowens kicks out of quite a lot of moves in this one. A lot of double team moves, a couple of even triple team moves, and he's kicking out of pretty much everything. Sometimes the pinfall has to be broken up, like when Kazarian teams with Nick on a big manufactured sort of BTE trigger. That move Bowens wouldn't have kicked out of. That gets broken up, he gets saved. But quite often in this match, he's kicking out of some pretty powerful moves, and I think this might be a bit of a hint or a sign that there are big things in store for him in the future. Eventually, towards the end, Matt Jackson sets up Jack Evans for the Meltzer driver, but Nick does a little fakey this time on the apron, springing up, but then turning around and diving onto some opponents outside of the ring. Instead, it's Daniels who finishes off the move, and they call it like the best Meltzer ever, because it's a combination of the Meltzer driver and the best moonsault ever. And when Excalibur explains this, I can just feel JR's soul slowly leaving his body. SCU get on the mic afterwards and explain that they've agreed that because of the recent squabbles between them, the next time they lose a match, they are going to end their tag team. But they don't think they're going to lose for quite some time, and they are coming for the Young Bucks tag team titles. And the two teams shake hands, and that's the end of the opening segment. This gets a B+ grade. It was a fun sprint to open the show, and I'm especially intrigued by this new storyline for SCU. How far are they going to go? Will it eventually culminate in a tag team match? And I'm guessing they'll lose, and then what will happen from there on. Next up, we get the return of Jon Moxley. We saw him on, obviously, the Brody Lee Memorial Show giving like a video package, which was really nice, really touching, a very heartfelt and well-spoken tribute. But we haven't seen him in the ring in full Jon Moxley mode since he was screwed by Omega and Callis. So Moxley stomps out from the bleachers, he's all the way down to the ring, he gets on the mic, and it's your standard Jon Moxley promo. He says, "You know what, yeah, I was screwed, but I lost the belt. Sometimes you're just on the bad end of a bad deal, but I'm not going to let him get away with this. I'm going to get my revenge." Moxley says that as much as he'd love to hunt down Omega and Callis and beat them up with a crowbar, that's literally what he says, he's not going to do that because he wants to respect the integrity of the AEW World Championship, and Phoenix has a title match later on tonight. So it's not going to be during that match, but at some point, Kenny Omega is going to feel the wrath of Jon Moxley. This gets a standard B grade. It was good. It was good promo from Moxley, as we've come to expect, obviously, by this stage in his career. But nothing too important was really said here. He would show up later on, though, And that is where the major talking points happened. Next up, we go backstage where Dasha is there with Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy, where unfortunately they reveal that Trent is out for 4 to 5 months with, I believe, a pec injury, which is very sad news for him. Hopefully he has a quick and full recovery. But as they're explaining this, they are interrupted by a very mocking Miro, accompanied by Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. He starts arguing with Chuck. He challenges Chuck next week, or Chuck challenges him. The long and short of it is that the stipulation is that if Chuck loses, he has to be Miro's young boy, he has to be his servant, do whatever Miro says, basically, until the wedding of Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. So obviously, stick your house on Chuck Taylor to lose that match. He's definitely going to lose. We've got some Chuck Taylor skits in the bag. Next up, we have a big, slappy meat, big boy horse fight, big sweaty men, big boy horse meat fight, big meat fight. Jake Hager versus Wardlow. They both wrestle around for a bit at the start. They try and knock each other down with big shoulder tackles. They spill to the outside. It's kind of like Shingo versus Cobb from Wrestle Kingdom a few days ago, but slightly slowed down. And that's not necessarily a big insult, because what a high bar that is to live up to. I'm almost complimenting them here. Please, guys, don't beat me up. But despite the match starting off quite slowly, this really picks up. Wardlow takes control with a few big suplexes. They escape from each other's finishing moves, so Hager gets out of the F10. Wardlow rolls out of the ankle lock. Wardlow hits an amazing swanton bomb at one point as well. Obviously we've seen him do it before, but I don't think it ever gets less surprising whenever he does it, because he just gets such air for such a big dude. Right near the end of the match, they head up to the second rope, and Hager gets the head and arm triangle locked in, but Wardlow drops down to the apron, bouncing Hager's head off the turnbuckle to break the hold. Really cool and unique spot there. Then Wardlow gets in the ring, big F10, 1, 2, 3, and Wardlow beats Jake Hager clean as a whistle. Huge win for Wardlow there. Hager is obviously livid. He's kicking the ropes. He looks like he wants to fight. The rest of the Inner Circle get into the ring to calm him down, apart from Jericho, who is obviously on commentary duties for this show. But the rest of them all get in. They calm Hager down, and then him and Wardlow exchange a fist bump, which I was actually surprised about. But later on, backstage, Hager is still angry. You can hear him trashing the locker room. He's so livid that he's lost to Wardlow. So MJF goes in there and basically instantly charms him and calms him down. He says, "Hey buddy, hey, you're still Jake Hager. You're still undefeated in the octagon. You're still a huge badass." And Hager's like, yeah, respect, man, respect. I'm like, what? That was really easy. MJF obviously has a +10 modifier to his charisma roll. You know what? I said the start of this match was quite slow, but it picked up so much and it was so exciting at points that I'm going to give it an A- grade, I think. It was very, very enjoyable stuff from just two massive men. It's pro wrestling. Next up, we go backstage where Private Party are trying to mix some drinks. They've got gin, but they've got no juice. Now, who on earth could be on Dynamite this week who could provide them with the juice? Obviously, it's Snoop Theo Double Jizzle. He's in the hizzy nizzle, and here we go again. My name is Snoop Dogg. I don't know, from hearing my own voice there, if that was a good impersonation or a terrible one. I'm going to have to hear that back when I watch this again, and I'm worried that I'm going to be very ashamed of myself. Matt Hardy arrives all suited up in his kind of sleazy character, and he's got a pair of contracts for the boys to sign. Private Party are wary. They're like, well, you're taking a pretty big cut here, Matt. As long as these clauses are in place, then we will sign it. And Matt looks at it and goes, yeah, the clauses are all there. He shows them in the contract. They sign these contracts, and then everybody leaves. Now, I'm worried for the Private Party. Next up, we get the weigh-in for the TNT Championship match, which takes place next week between Darby Allin and Brian Cage. Now, they don't always do weigh-ins in wrestling. It's quite a rare thing. Obviously, the weigh-in is because Darby Allin is small and Brian Cage is very, very large. And we're going to look at the difference in the numbers and find that very amazing and possibly entertaining as well. Brian Cage gets on the scales first. He's out, obviously, with all of Team Taz. Darby is out alone. Cage gets on the scales, and it turns out he weighs 272 pounds. And he turns to ringside and goes, "What do you think about that, Billy Gunn?" Darby is next. He weighs 170 pounds. Taz is dubious about this. He's like, look at all the stuff he's got on. He's got a coat, he's got shoes, he's got chain, he's got all kind of a studded belt. Why don't you just do it properly? And Darby's like, right, I've had enough of this. This feud has not been 9 months in the making like you say it has, Taz. Wait, I'm not doing my Darby voice. This has been going on my entire life. Darby explains that he's been putting up with bullies like Team Taz for his whole life, and now he wants to fight. He picks up his skateboard and he's ready to take on all of Team Taz. Unwise decision. There's more of them, and they're big lads usually. Team Taz are about to beat him down. The lights go out, and it's it's Sting. Sting comes out once again, to save Darby Allin again. So, it was expected, but it still works. Team Taz run away. Team Taz bailed at the stage, and Taz angrily vows, while being very angry at the snow that is falling for Sting's entrance, he vows that Darby will lose that belt next week. I'm going to give this a B- grade. Nothing wrong with it really, but I am feeling a bit of diminishing returns on the whole Sting run-ins, because it's the same sort of thing every time. He comes out, Team Taz run away, and, you know, nothing much more is said. He just stares at Darby and Darby stares back at him. The first time Sting came out was obviously massive, a huge moment, but I'm waiting for this to turn into something else right now. It feels like it's a bit stationary. I'm assuming that next week is going to be when it changes. Maybe Sting will even the odds and, you know, help Darby beat Brian Cage fairly by taking out the rest of Team Taz or something, and that'll probably be quite cool, quite fun. But for now, I can't give this more than a B-. However, the new design of the TNT title is very nice, and it's a lovely touch that they gave the original design to Brody Lee's son, so that's all good stuff. Next up, we go backstage to my boy, Alex Marvez, who had a limited role in this week's Dynamite, which I'm not too happy about, but that's okay, Marvez. We all have off weeks. I'm sure you'll be back on it next week. He is there with Jurassic Express. They are interrupted by FTR and Tully Blanchard, who all mock Marco's stunt for being the weak link of the team, for being, you know, really small and you're worthless to the team. Why don't you just leave? Marco Stunt says, no, I'm not worthless. I'm going to stand up to you right now. In fact, next week when we have our match, why don't I take the place of Luchasaurus and me and Jungle Boy will kick your asses? And FTR are like, yeah, all right. Next up, we get Cody Rhodes versus Matt Seidel. No sign of Arn Anderson, but it's okay because Cody has found somebody just as experienced when it comes to pro wrestling. Snoop Dogg, who comes out and has Arn's clipboard, and there's a rap remix of Cody's theme with Snoop Dogg doing a verse over it. I mean, what can I say? It's Cody and Snoop Dogg. Come on now. One of the most entertaining things during this match is not even, I mean, it's a good match, but it's not even the wrestling itself. It's the way that Snoop Dogg has to find various different ways of watching the match, but in a cool Snoop Dogg way. So he can't look too worried, he can't be getting too into it because he's Snoop Dogg. So he's there on the ramp just kind of posting up, just like, let's see what's going on here. What's Cody doing right now? It's so good. And Cody seems to respect Snoop Dogg's opinion as a manager. He even consults him at several points during the match. I can hear Jim Cornette's blood boiling from here. Snoop even nearly gets involved physically because Cody heads to the outside. Seidel goes up top, leaps off with a Meteora, and nearly catches Snoop on the way down, who has to kind of daintily skip out of the way, but it still looks quite cool because it's Snoop Dogg. Later on, they head to the outside. Cody has Seidel against the railing. He goes to deck him. Seidel moves. He knocks Serpentico to the floor, and Dr. Luther is enraged. Both guys take turns kicking out of their kind of secondary finishes, their more signature moves like the disaster kick, etc. Cody avoids the shooting star press. Seidel goes for the jumping knee strike. Cody moves. Crossroads pulls him up. Second crossroads, and there's no kicking out of that. 1, 2, 3. Cody Rhodes wins the match. But obviously, because of what happened earlier in the match, Luther and Serpentico enter the ring and start beating down Cody. Get in there, Snoop, get in there immediately. No, it's Matt Seidel who helps save the day. He throws Luther outside the ring, and then he heads up top to hit the shooting star press on Serpentico. But Snoop Dogg, to everybody's surprise, goes, no, I'll do it, don't worry, I'll go up top. So while Cody and Seidel hold Serpentico down, pin him by his 4 limbs to the canvas, Snoop Dogg goes up top, balances on the top rope, and hits a splash. You know, he hits a splash. It's just a splash. He hits a weird move, right? It's weird. Snoop tries to hit a splash, but kind of bottles it a little bit, as anybody who's not a wrestler would. I mean, come on. But he lands sort of almost feet first. Excalibur explains on commentary and can barely hide his laughter when he says that it's almost like a modified knee drop. It's weird. I think Sasha Banks ripped into it a bit on Twitter as well. But it was funny, wasn't it? Snoop then pins Serpentico, Cody counts the fall, and they actually ring the bell. Jericho is losing his mind on commentary. He really hates Snoop Dogg. And then Snoop Dogg goes up to the announce table to say hi to Jim Ross and Tony and Jericho. And when he high-fives Jericho and gives him a hug, Jericho could not be more delighted. He's like, yes, mate, come here, Snoop Dogg. Did he know the camera was on it? Jericho's broken kayfabe there, lads. This gets a B grade. The match was definitely fun. The Snoop Dogg bit was a bit messy. It was certainly a moment anyway, and you know, it's hard not to enjoy what Snoop Dogg does, even if he doesn't do it that well, like the splash. But when he went up to commentary, and I so wanted Jericho to keep up the heel act when Snoop went to give him a high five, and I just wanted Jericho to be like, get out of here, Snoop Dogg, but he didn't. And if he'd done that, I would have bumped this up to probably at least an A, maybe even an A+. That would have been the funniest thing ever. Unfortunately, he didn't, and it only gets a B. Next up, AEW Women's Title action as the champion Hikaru Shida takes on Abaddon, who obviously she has been terrified of for the past couple of months. And when Abaddon makes her entrance, JR, you can hear him just be like, "Gah," on commentary, as if he's like, "I like sexy ladies, not spooky ones." That wasn't JR's voice. Shida makes her entrance last. Abaddon just charges her and jumps her and gets cracked with a kendo stick shot and just sits up because she's Abaddon and she's scary. That's a cool start to this match. This match is very unique though. It doesn't follow the normal formula really in terms of moves. There's a lot of unique offense from Abaddon, but despite it being so different, I still quite enjoyed it. So for example, there's a point where once the match has officially begun where Abaddon is draped over the apron and Shida goes to do her running knee lift, but Abaddon catches the leg and just bites her leg, and I think it's her makeup, but it looks like she's left a bloody mark on Shida's leg, which is really cool. She drags Shida under the ring, and when Shida emerges, her neck is just pouring with blood. It's a bit of a horror show, but I think it's quite good. It's certainly variety on what is otherwise quite a wrestling heavy show. Shida comes back with several big moves and big slams into the guardrail and a huge superplex from the top back into the ring, but Abaddon does the Bray Wyatt spider position thing, and it's like, what's going to keep her down? A running knee is going to keep her down shortly after that. And Hikaru Shida, despite being terrified of her challenger, bravely picks up the win. This gets a B grade from me. It was unique, and I liked it for what it was, and I like Abaddon, and I thought it was a different challenge for Shida to overcome, and she looks better because of it. Next up, we head backstage where Tay Conti is stood with Alex Reynolds, John Silver, and Anna Jay of the Dark Order. She explains that next week she faces Serena Deeb for the NWA Women's Championship, and she's going to win it, and Anna Jay says she's going to do so because she has the Dark Order's backing. And now we get to the main event of the show, Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix for the AEW World Championship. What a match this was. Both guys were just on fire in this match. It's almost like Kenny saw all of his mates in New Japan having a great time because it's Wrestle Kingdom. We're all putting on match of the year candidates, and Kenny was like, right, let's have one of my own then. And Fenix was arguably even more impressive than Omega in this match. What a performance from both guys. They've obviously got incredible chemistry, but this was something else, man. Like, there was some insane spots here, and it all made sense in the context of the match. Like, for example, Fenix getting thrown over the guardrail but vaulting it, jumping back over, big forward roll, jumps up, and Omega just grabs him by the back and hits a Snapdragon on the outside. But it's done so seamlessly that it's just so perfect. And then there's moments that display Fenix's ludicrous balance and athleticism, like when he grabs Omega's hand and goes to do that like rope walk thing that lots of luchador style wrestlers do, but Omega slaps his hand away, so Fenix just does it without any balance or support. He just does all of the stuff on the ropes and dives off, and oh man. Also hits one of his terrifying borderline reckless suicide dives, which nearly sends both men over the guardrail. This match is fantastic. I've said it enough times. You've probably guessed by now I was quite a fan of this match. But things ramp up even further. Fenix casually hits a backflip out of a corner at one point into a German suplex. Omega's on the apron at one point. Fenix jumps off the second turnbuckle and stomps him on the back of the head. And Omega is like bent over but on his feet at this point. So Fenix had to get air, and he did. Man, some of these moves. Kenny hits a V-trigger, Fenix goes down, springs back up like a seamless kip up, super kick, both men are down, and we all finally have a chance to catch our breath. The one-winged angel at one point gets countered into a reverse Rana, and then Fenix heads outside to dive back in, but gets distracted by Callis, eats a knee, but manages to complete his dive anyway, turns it into like a springboard twisting cutter sort of thing. Kenny at this point is having to bring out his bigger moves, like V-triggers and stuff, but it's not good enough to put Fenix away. So Fenix presses the advantage, he has Omega down, he gets up top, Eddie Guerrero tribute, he comes off with a frog splash that I so desperately want him to nail, but Omega gets the knees up. Fenix goes up top again a little bit later on, leaps off, Omega catches him upside down and pile drives him, and then V-triggers him, and then one-winged angel, and that's the finish, and I feel out of breath just talking about it. I don't know what else to say about this match. I've said it all there really. A+ is the grade. Wow, possibly the best match in Dynamite history. Match of the year candidate in a week when Wrestle Kingdom happened. That is no easy feat. But of course, it's not over yet. Don Callis gets on the mic and says, oh, just received word that something's going on backstage. Can we have a look? The Tron lights up, and backstage, Pac and Penta, Phoenix's allies of course, have been jumped by Eddie Kingston, the Butcher, and the Blade, and they're being restrained, which means that Phoenix in the ring is totally at the mercy of Kenny Omega. And Omega says, right, come on, let's end his career. And I think I know what's going to happen here. Watching this, I'm like, oh yeah, so Moxley's going to run out and save the day. He's going to save Phoenix, Omega's going to run away, and that's going to be the end of the show and the continuation of their feud. Moxley does run out, and he does try and save the day. He's got a barbed wire baseball bat. He beats Omega with it. Callis runs away. It all looks good, and then Omega is saved by a run-in from Gallows and Anderson with the Impact Tag Team titles as well. It's their first appearance in AEW. What is going on? And from this point on, all hell breaks loose. Magic killer to Jon Moxley, shots with the barbed wire baseball bat. You've got lads from the ringside area, like lower card guys on the heel and face side, jumping the guardrail trying to get in the ring. Gallows and Anderson are knocking them down. Gallows puts someone through the timekeeper's table, not sure who it was. It's all mayhem, and the Young Bucks come down to try and calm everything down. The Bucks are in the ring, they're trying to calm down Gallows and Anderson and Omega as well, who was getting involved, and then basically it sort of seems to calm down. Now, one of the people who tried to stop Gallows and Anderson's rampage was Brian Pillman Jr. He's on the ramp recovering after being hit, and Omega lurks near that side of the ring, and Pillman just reaches up and latches onto his arm, and Matt Jackson super kicks him off. Everybody stops what they're doing, and Omega and the Good Brothers raise the signal in the air, and Matt and Nick Jackson join in, and they're reunited. This gets an A+ grade as well. What on earth is going on? This was the most exciting finish to a show since Omega said, right, we'll see you on Tuesday, and he was going to go and show up at Impact. Well, this is the next step, and it's so exciting again. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't wait to find out. And I hope that my boys, the Motor City Machine Guns, are heavily involved. And by heavily involved, I mean beating up Gallows and Anderson, the Young Bucks, SCU, every FTR, anybody who wants to challenge MCMG. Get the Machine Guns in there now. Overall, right, look, the last 30 minutes of this show were maybe the best final half hour of a wrestling TV show I've ever seen. Certainly one of the best, unquestionably. But the rest of the show was kind of lagging behind that caliber a little bit. You had obviously the weird Snoop Dogg involvement. You had fun matches like Hager versus Wardlow. You had slightly different matches like Shida versus Abadon, and a high-flying opener as well. But it's all about Gallows and Anderson. It's all about that insane match between Omega and Phoenix. I'm giving this show an A grade. So close to an A+, but definitely check this out if you haven't seen it already. So that's it for this week's episode of AEW Dynamite Graded, and I cannot wait for part 2 of New Year's Smash. Thank you very much for watching this video. Leave your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.